I thought I was surprising my parents for Easter with flowers and chocolate. What I found instead shocked me to my core. My sister had taken over their house, and left them living in the garage like guests in their own life. At 38, I thought I knew my family pretty well. Living 5 hours away in Portland, I called Mom every day without fail. Same routine, same reassuring voice telling me, "We're doing just fine, sweetheart." Same old, same old. This Easter, I decided to surprise them. No heads-up call, just me, my Honda Civic, a box of Godiva chocolates, and a bouquet of daffodils from Whole Foods. The drive down I-5 to Sacramento felt longer than usual, but my excitement kept building. I pictured Dad on the back deck with his Weber grill, Mom fussing over her famous honey-glazed ham, maybe some Patsy Cline playing softly in the background. Growing up, our house was pure comfort. Dad built it himself, every beam, every floorboard. Mom made it a home with her quilts, family photos, and the smell of apple pie that seemed permanently baked into the walls. We weren't wealthy, but we were rich in all the ways that mattered. My older sister Rebecca was different. 2 years my senior, she was the storm to my calm, dramatic, loud, always stirring up trouble. But strangers loved her. She had this gift for making people believe she was sunshine incarnate, even while she was quietly burning down their world. When I pulled into the familiar driveway, something felt wrong. The porch sat empty, no Easter decorations, no welcoming lights. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. Using my old key, I stepped inside and froze. Everything was wrong. The warm yellow walls had been painted stark white. Mom's beloved sectional, the one where we'd spent countless movie nights, was gone, replaced by a cold leather monstrosity that looked like it belonged in a corporate lobby. The family photos had vanished, replaced by pretentious black and white abstracts. Even Mom's antique grandfather clock, a wedding gift from her parents, had been swapped for some twisted metal sculpture that hurt to look at. Then I heard Rebecca's voice from the kitchen. "I told you she might show up unannounced." A male voice laughed in response, "The golden child. Don't worry, she'll be gone by morning." My heart hammered against my ribs as I backed out of the house that no longer felt like home. Something drew me toward the garage. Maybe instinct, maybe desperation. Through the small side window, I saw a soft light glowing. My hands shook as I slowly lifted the garage door. There they were. Dad sat hunched over on a metal folding stool, trying to fix a cabinet hinge with his old toolbox. Mom huddled in a plastic lawn chair, wearing her heavy winter coat despite the mild spring weather. In the corner sat a narrow camping cot with a thin sleeping bag. A card table held a small Coleman camping stove and 2 mismatched plates. That was it. That was their entire world now. "Oh, honey," Mom whispered when she saw me, her voice breaking on the words. "Mom, what is this?" I managed to choke out. She couldn't meet my eyes. "It's just temporary, sweetheart." Dad didn't even look up from his work. "Your mother gets cold. I keep telling her to wear gloves. Why are you living out here?" The words came out strangled. They exchanged one of those married couple looks, the kind that communicates volumes without words. Rebecca and Nathan needed some space, Mom finally said, barely above a whisper. "They're fixing up the house. Just for a little while. Just for a little while." Those words hit me like a physical blow. My parents, who had worked their entire lives, who had built that house with their own hands, were living like refugees in their own garage while my sister played house with her boyfriend. I looked at my mother, this woman who had sacrificed everything for her children, sitting in that freezing garage wearing her winter coat like it was normal. Something hardened in my chest. "Pack a bag," I said quietly. "I'll be back in an hour." Mom blinked in confusion. "What? You heard me." Dad finally looked up. "Where are we going, kiddo? You're not spending another night in this garage." I drove to the Marriott downtown like my life depended on it, white-knuckling the steering wheel the entire way. This wasn't just any hotel, it was the nicest place in town, with a marble lobby, actual room service, and a concierge who wore a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. "I need your best room with 2 queen beds for a full week," I told the desk clerk, sliding my credit card across the granite counter. When I returned to the garage with the key cards, Mom tried to protest. "Sweetheart, we don't want to cause any trouble." "I'll cause it for you," I said firmly. "Let's go." Something in my voice must have convinced them because they didn't argue after that. Watching my parents settle into clean sheets with actual heat, cable TV, and pillows that weren't flat as pancakes, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, focused rage. But not the hot, explosive kind. This was cold, calculated, the kind of anger that gets things done. Back in my own hotel room, I opened my laptop and got to work. Being a contracts manager for a tech company had its advantages. I lived and breathed fine print, and I knew exactly how to navigate legal paperwork. Rebecca might be good at manipulating people, but I was better at playing by the rules. First stop, the county recorder's office website. I pulled up the property records for my parents' address. There it was in black and white, the house deed listed only my father's and mother's names. Rebecca wasn't on the title, wasn't on the mortgage, wasn't legally anything more than a guest. And guests can be evicted. But before I brought out the big guns, I had one more card to play. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I sent Rebecca a text, "Hey, want to grab lunch tomorrow? Just us sisters." Her response came back lightning fast, "Really? You're not mad? I've been thinking, we should talk." Rebecca showed up at Panera Bread the next day looking like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine, designer jeans, perfectly blown out hair, carrying a Kate Spade purse that probably cost more than my parents' monthly grocery budget. She slid into the booth across from me wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm so glad you reached out," she gushed before I'd even had a chance to order. "I know things have been tense, but I really think we can work this out." I smiled back and nodded. "I think so too." I let her talk while we ate, her usual chicken noodle soup and half a turkey sandwich, me picking at a Caesar salad I had no appetite for. She painted herself as the responsible daughter, the one who'd stepped up when our parents needed help. According to Rebecca, she was practically a saint for organizing their lives and bringing some structure to their chaos. The house was falling apart, she explained, waving her manicured hands for emphasis. Mom couldn't keep up with the cleaning, and Dad's arthritis makes it hard for him to do maintenance. I'm really just helping them transition. Transition to what? I asked innocently. Well, you know, they're getting older. They might need to think about other living arrangements soon. I waited until she'd finished half her sandwich before I leaned forward and said, "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe they do need help making some big decisions." Her eyes lit up like I'd just offered her a winning lottery ticket. "I've actually been thinking about it all night," I continued. "If we sold the house, we could use the money to help them find a nice assisted living place. And you and Nathan could finally get your own place without worrying about them." She was practically bouncing in her seat now. "Exactly. I knew you'd understand once you really thought about it." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "I even talked to a few realtors this morning. Got some preliminary estimates." She leaned in to look at the numbers, and that's when I said it. "Also, just so you know, I recorded this entire conversation." Her face went white. I stood up, left a 20 on the table, and walked out without looking back. 3 days later, I returned with backup. Not just moral support, actual legal backup. A sheriff's deputy and an eviction notice that had been properly filed with the county courthouse. I hadn't told my parents what I was planning. They were still at the Marriott, finally relaxed for the first time in months, ordering room service and watching old movies like they were on a second honeymoon. I wanted to handle this mess without dragging them through any more stress. Nathan answered the front door wearing my father's bathrobe and holding a cup of coffee in Mom's favorite mug like he owned the place. The smirk on his face when he saw me was pure arrogance. "You lost, princess," he drawled. I held out the official envelope. "Nope, but you're about to be." His smirk faltered as he looked at the county seal on the paperwork. Rebecca appeared behind him, her confident mask slipping the second she saw what I was holding. "You can't be serious," she said, but her voice had lost all its usual authority. "Dead serious." She tried to flip the script, switching to her wounded little sister act. "Look, we just need a little more time. The house really did need work, and Mom and Dad said it was okay. You're not on the deed," I cut her off. "You're not on the lease. You're not on any legal document related to this property. You're a guest who's overstayed her welcome." Nathan stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "You can't evict family." That's when Deputy Martinez stepped into view and said calmly, "Actually, Mom, you've been properly served. I suggest you read the paperwork carefully. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises." The color drained from both their faces as the reality hit them. This wasn't a family squabble anymore, it was a legal matter, and they were on the wrong side of the law. Rebecca's eyes darted between me and the deputy like she was trying to figure out if this was some elaborate prank. When she realized it wasn't, something ugly flickered across her face. "You'll regret this," she hissed. But her threats felt hollow now. The game was over, and we both knew it. A week later, my parents were back where they belonged, inside their own home. I'd spent the previous few days working with a team of cleaners and movers, putting everything back the way it should be. Mom's sectional returned to its spot by the window. The family photos went back up on the mantel. Even her grandfather clock resumed its steady ticking in the corner. The moment that broke my heart in the best possible way was when Mom walked into the living room and saw her ceramic flower centerpiece, the one she'd made in a pottery class 20 years ago, sitting in its usual spot on the coffee table. She touched it gently, like she was afraid it might disappear again. I thought this was gone forever. I found it in the attic, I told her. Rebecca must have stashed it up there when she was redecorating. That afternoon, Dad pulled me aside and handed me a manila folder. Inside was the house deed and a letter he'd written in his careful handwriting. "If anything happens to your mother and me," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "this place is yours. You're the one who came back when we needed you." I hugged him tight, feeling like that little girl again who used to help him with weekend projects, handing him tools and learning the names of different screws and bolts. As for Rebecca, last I heard, she was bouncing between friends' couches, spinning sob stories about how her family had betrayed her and stolen her inheritance. Nathan disappeared the day after the eviction notice was served. Apparently, playing house was only fun when it was someone else's house. Meanwhile, my parents were finally sleeping in their own bed again, eating real meals at their own kitchen table, and watching their evening news shows in their own living room. No more camping stove. No more sleeping in the garage like unwanted guests in their own lives. That Easter didn't end the way I'd planned, but it ended exactly the way it should have. Dad fired up his Weber grill on the back deck, the smell of barbecued ribs filling the air while Mom's honey-glazed ham worked its magic in the oven. Dolly Parton played softly on the old radio, and the dining room table was set with Mom's good china, the set she'd been saving for special occasions, that she finally realized happened every day you got to spend with the people you love. We sat around that table as the sun set, talking and laughing like we used to when I was a kid. Dad told his terrible dad jokes. Mom fussed over whether everyone had enough to eat. I filled them in on my work projects and my dating disasters, and they listened like every word was precious. For the first time in months, the house felt alive again. Full of warmth and laughter and the kind of love that doesn't need to announce itself, it just is. Later that night, as I helped Mom load the dishwasher, she said quietly, "I'm sorry we didn't tell you what was happening. We didn't want to worry you." "Mom," I said, drying a plate with one of her ancient dish towels, "I'm your daughter. Worrying about you is literally in my job description." She smiled at that, the first real smile I'd seen from her in too long. As I drove back to Portland the next morning, I kept glancing in my rearview mirror at the house getting smaller behind me. But this time, I wasn't worried about what I was leaving behind. I knew my parents were safe, warm, and exactly where they belonged. Sometimes family isn't about blood or obligation. Sometimes it's about showing up when it matters most, even when, especially when, it's hard. And sometimes, the best Easter surprise isn't the one you plan to give, but the one you end up receiving, the chance to be the person your family can count on when everything falls apart. That's a gift that keeps on giving, long after the chocolate eggs are gone and the flowers have faded.